So today I woke up with my mind stayed on freedom, right? And I was reading an article, which I'm definitely going to get into. That's the purpose of me coming on here live, to have this talk with you guys and look at what is really going on in Alabama. Now, anyone who has been Black in America, whatever you want to call yourself, I don't want to, go through titles and things like that. Shalom, sister. I see you, Pensalola. Thank you for joining this discussion because you got to find out some information today. And so, you know, anyone who has been here for a while understands that the ebb and flow of this fight. And if you ever had the opportunity to read through the Kerner Commission report and see the recommendations about the ways that the governance structure, we'll call it that for right now, deals with social unrest and why these things continue to happen, then you'll see that those recommendations weren't taken very seriously. And you know what? The continuation of social unrest happens, and we still fight for our freedom. And that's why I said I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. And so it was easy for us to understand what happened when Alabama had a riverfront fight, right? But did we really think about the fact that the bus boycotts came from there? And what is going on regionally? What is the condition of us regionally there? And what led up to this moment of this fight, right? It didn't just happen in a vacuum and overnight. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what is really going on and see if y'all are ready to bring your chairs to this one, right? Um, Here, as you can see, and I think it's sharing. Let me see if it's sharing. If you could see it, put a one in the chat. Okay. Now, it took literally no time for us to be able to come up and see all of these memes. They even got T-shirts. It took no time. And that's okay. I believe that people should defend themselves. That's a natural human function, right? And I believe that we should fight for ours and stay out of other people's business, right? But we got some other business, family, to deal with. We got some other business to deal with. And listen, everybody had their moment to look upon these memes and all of the things that came out during that time of this riverfront situation, right? But I wonder how many people started to really look into what was going on overall. What was going on overall? Because, like I said, it takes boldness for people to just walk up to you and put their hands on you. That didn't just happen overnight. Obviously, thank you for confirming that you can hear me and you could see this. Obviously, they felt bold enough to do it, for one, right? And it's been a continuation of something that what the Gen Zers would say that's ancient. What y'all do, what we're dealing with is ancient, even though 1950s, that's not ancient to us. I was born in the 70s, in the late 70s, and so it's not ancient. So anyway, it took all of that 0.3 seconds for people to start thinking of ways to roll this out, to show these memes, to create this art, and all of that. But let's go to something else. Let's go to something else. Now, are y'all gonna bring your chairs to this one? I wonder how many people would actually show up and fight this fight, because this is a fight that we definitely need to be understanding and be involved in. Okay. We're talking about inhumane conditions. We're talking about a more than a decade's problem. We're talking about the federal and governance structure has known about this, right? They have known about this. Thank you. Disclaimer, educational information purposes intended. You are so right. And I have it in the right hand corner. And so I want to look at and go through this backyard sewage and parasitic disease. And just for you to know, this was in Time magazine, and I got to bring the thing back up. For some reason, it got lost. Hold on one second. This issue just didn't come up today. Okay. Time magazine reported out on this issue, and we're going to go back to this in 2022, right? And they're saying the same thing as I did. Like, wait a minute. We're still talking about disparate treatment in Alabama and at this level of inhumaneness, right? And so they reported on it, but who showed up with their chairs? Sanitation problems have plagued Black residents of an Alabama community county for decades. The government might finally do something. Well, that didn't happen, or else we wouldn't be here. Where the EPA got a civil rights complaint. And as soon as that comes up, you'll be able to see more about it because I'm going to go through this article and then I want to go over to the complaint. And then I want to talk about what are we going to do, right? This is our business. Other business that doesn't have anything to do with us, that's let somebody else needs to deal with that. This is our business. Where are our chairs at? Hmm? Do we have them ready to go in and battle over this situation right here? Because as I begin to read, you're going to see that there is some gross violations, humane violations happening. Look it up, right? I don't have a problem with consistently saying research, study to show yourself approved, because we're constantly being researched. Look this information up. All right, and so let's go over it. The backyard sewage and parasitic diseases, EPA opens a civil rights probe in Alabama. So advocates allege that the state hindered Black residents from receiving critical federal funds. Okay, critical federal funds, and let's see what happened. Okay, here's a picture from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. All right. Sewage collecting in crudely dug trenches, failing septic tanks that send waste bubbling into backyards. There are some of the common sites across Alabama's Black Belt, a strip of four continuous counties blessed with deep, fertile soil, but long plagued by inadequate wastewater, infrastructure, and commensurate parasitic disease. It's a problem, advocates say, that the state has the resources to address. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, opened a civil rights probe last week into the Alabama Department of Environmental Management and its implementation of a federal program designed to boost water infrastructure in communities across the country. The decision comes after advocates filed a complaint in March alleging that for years the state has hindered Black residents in rural areas from obtaining federal funds to update their wastewater systems. Now, this sounds familiar, and we know that this is that old familiar demon that always likes to reinvent the wheel and figure out new ways to engage in oppressive behavior. But it seems like this is the same thing that the farmers are saying, that the Black farmers are saying. USDA, there's a billions-dollar lawsuit because federal programs were not available. As a matter of fact, we didn't have access to them. Where are your chairs at on this? Where are your chairs at on this? I want to see them, right? And so, we need to bring more than the chairs. You guys got your tools ready? Got your tools ready to help the people, our people in Alabama, right? What is really going on? So let's go on to see what's happening. All right. And so the EPA opened the civil rights probe last week into the Alabama Department of Environmental Management and its implementation of a federal program designed to boost water infrastructure in communities across the country. The decision comes after advocates filed a complaint in March alleging that for years the state has hindered Black residents in rural areas from obtaining federal funds to update their water systems. It's a region where children, y'all know I'll pull up for the kids, play on sewage laden soil, and an overwhelming stench envelops some neighborhoods for weeks on end. Okay. It's really disgraceful and painful that people endure this, especially when we have the opportunity. So you see up here, they said they had the means and the opportunity, the financial means and the opportunity to address this problem, but didn't, right? And so hence that's why, there's a complaint. And so they could have fixed the problem, but didn't. What would explain that, right? If you have the means, and then, I don't want to hear nobody talking about boots. Sick of people bringing out these and tickle. You know what? I can't even. I got to get my mouth right. Let me get my mind right real quick because I'm trying to bring this information out, and I'm very, very upset because I want to know where are our chairs on this, right? No, don't worry about it. That's why I'm bringing this information out. These wicked demons, okay? They had the means and the resources. And if anybody knows anything about federal funding and federal programs, they're supposed to be prohibited from discrimination. But what these people in Alabama are saying is that they've been living in this condition since the beginning of time and they've had to deal with it. Now, I haven't even the diseases and the sicknesses that they've had to succumb to based on the conditions that somebody had the opportunity and the resources to address. Right? How inhumane do you want to get? Right? And so this is why, fam, we need to mind our business. This is our business. Okay. It's really disgraceful. Shalom, anonymous. You guys forgive me. I have allergy issues going on, and so my nose is a little bit stuffed up, so you'll hear me breathing kind of funny. But I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm going to bring this information out today. It's really disgraceful and painful that people endure this, especially when we have the opportunity to fix it. Well, I'm glad somebody got their right mind, but where you been, right? An attorney at the Natural Resource Defense Council who has been working on this issue. The March complaint was filed under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin under any program that receives federal funding. I just said that. They're not supposed to do this, but we know what they do. The governance structure lords over the resources. And you know what? When it comes to us, they're like, y'all can't have none. Fight us if you want to, right? And so at issue is the state's distribution of money from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, a federal program that provides financial assistance for states to carry out water infrastructure projects. Where's our chairs at? Right? In urban areas, that usually means funding updates to municipal wastewater treatment plants or controlling sources of toxic pollution. But in Alabama, sparsely populated Black Belt, where a disproportionate number of residents are Black, and I'm sure that's because that's the only place they've been pushed to live and live in poverty. That's a whole nother disproportionate issue that we'll address, but not today. We're talking about the toxicity levels, the wickedness of the governance structure to not come in and resolve this problem, and why this is our issue and we should be having our chairs on this one, right? And so it entails providing financial support for people without access to a centralized sewer system, to build on site septic tanks. The Black Belt and clay that drains water very slowly, making it difficult, okay, making it difficult, and I don't know what happened to my tab, making it difficult to set up septic systems. Many of the ones that do exist are antiquated and in dire need of repairs. At least 50% in one rural Alabama county, according to a UN report from 2011. Wait a minute, hold on. You mean to tell me that the UN reported about this in 2011, and they had the means, the article says, and I know they do because it's a federal program we're talking about here, right? And y'all know how they like jiggling wires on my lives or any streams that I do. So let me know if they do, because I'm just gonna keep going. So you didn't tell me that the federal funding was there, the state funding was there. They had nothing but opportunity and resources to fix the problem. The UN issues a report in 2011, all right? And we're still talking about this? Where's our chairs at? And I know some of you are hearing about this for the first time, right? Because this isn't what is going to be shown in mainstream media. We know that. Like I said, Time talked about it last year. We see all of these memes coming out. What about the riverfront? What about this? What is happening with our families over there in Alabama? The UN? When was the last time the UN wrote about something related to our condition? And we see this happen in 2011, and we're still talking about this. The EPA is still trying to figure out how to fix it. Is the federal government going to enforce their programs or not? Because that is what they're supposed to do. So let's look at what is being said about the condition. Let's go on. In theory, federal dollars from Clean Water State Revolving Fund should help. But here's the but. In their March complaint, attorneys at the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Southern Poverty Law Center, we can talk about them another day, alleged that state regulators designed a system that makes it impossible for rural residents to access this crucial financial assistance. So even if you design the system to do your wicked deeds, information out about your inhumane treatment and all of this stuff that's happening with the water system. See, this is how I'm going to say this. We can legislate justice, but you can't legislate hard change. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate that, right? And so it's almost like these folks are so sick and sadistic. They like to talk and talk and talk and look at their condition. But y'all set the terms. You set the terms of this condition, and then you want to report about it, and the UN puts a report, a report, a report, a report. Everything's codified. I told y'all that. I told you that this system of governance is based on a system of codification. And if we look through the wisdom of Solomon, I believe it maybe not Solomon, it may be Enoch 68. We see that the written language is wicked as hell. Okay, now we'll go into that. Y'all know I talk about understand the governance structure and the system of codification that they are utilizing. You see all of this report, report, complaint, report, complaint, report. Where's the action? Okay, I don't want to see another report. We know what happened to the Carter Commission report that nobody did anything about. Recommendation. So the UN reported about this issue of Black Alabamians in 2011. It's been stated in this article. I'm gonna drop this in the chat, fam. Drop this in the chat. I need us to go get our chairs, right? More than our chairs, right? And so I'm gonna drop that in the chat. One of the ways that the Alabama Department of Environmental Management does this, the complaint states, is by only allowing public bodies to receive ruling out rural homeowners and community groups. In contrast, other southern states like North Carolina and Arkansas give high priority to on-site sanitation systems. The result is stark. Alabama has distributed more than $1.5 billion in clean water state revolving fund money since the program's inception in 1987. How old was I then? I was 10 years old. 1987. So since I was 10 years old, they have distributed more than $1.5 billion for clean water state revolving program. But my Black family in Alabama can't get done to fix their issue. We're going to go to the letter. We're going to go to the letter. And this was the area that they were relegated to. Okay. And so a lack of wastewater infrastructure can have and has had on the people living here severe public health consequences. One study from 2017 found that 1/3 of the residents in Alabama's, this is 1/3, y'all. 1/3 of the residents in Alabama's Lowndes County are dealing with, let me highlight this whole thing, hookworm, intestinal parasite, hookworm, that can cause anemia and stunt children's mental development. Y'all hear that? Okay. And we're saying, oh, you guys don't want to give the resources or the access to fix this problem. The UN done wrote a report in 2011. You've dropped over more than $1 billion since 1987. It's 2023, fam. Okay. Then these children that are dealing with mental development issues by what I always call design, because they know what the problem is. Y'all hear me talking about the way that things are codified and utilized as a weapon for control by deprivation, rejecting and denying people their wants, needs, and desires intentionally to compel or force them to act certain ways. Okay. And then the county will turn around and say, it's our fault. You know how they say? The parents did it. They did it. Something's wrong with them. Epigenetics. Epigenetics. I told you, they study us. They know exactly what they're doing and what they have done that's inhumane. And then we are over there minding somebody else's business. Nah, this is our business right here. This is our business right here. Okay. How many generations? If we talk about from 1987, is it 1987? they started giving out all this money. To 2023, how many people, children, families had the hookworm alone? The intestinal parasite that causes anemia and stunts children's mental development. And how many of those children are now adults dealing with the same problem? Because it said, this is a community that has been dealing with this problem for decades. The UN wrote a report in 2011. I'm going to bring it back up. The study from 2017 found that people were being medically and severely impacted. And we're still, not us, them. The governance structure still don't got a solution. Okay, let's keep going. They don't want to have one, right? And so we need to bring our chairs. All right, the direness of the wastewater situation across the Black Belt, interesting calling it that anyway. We'll have to dive into that a little bit further at some point, not today, has been well documented for more than a decade. I just said that. In 2017, another UN poverty official, okay, toured the region. We're talking the UN poverty officials touring Alabama in the United States, but we know who created the UN, and remarked that he'd never seen anything like it in the first world. I want y'all to hear that. Okay, so in 2011, the UN wrote a report, and then you mean to tell me it took them 6 years to go in and see a poverty official to tour the place? And what? I've never seen anything like this before in the first world. And then you leave, nobody does anything, right? And of course, mainstream didn't show us this. They'll show us knocking people out with chairs. And hey, look, like I said, we have to defend ourselves, right? But where's the defense for this? Where is our defense for this? Because as you can see, the people that are helping this region in the Black Belt of Alabamians, which is predominantly Black, are agencies and institutions that have been around for long enough that they could have fixed the problem, right? They could, yes, it was anonymous. You're right about that. We have to talk about that one day, right? And so here you have 2 years ago. Okay, let's just say they had 2 years to fix it, but we know they didn't. This is by design. A 2021 civil rights probe by the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services into the conditions. Who set the terms for that condition? Into the condition in Lowndes County concluded in May, with the state agreeing to identify homes with inadequate sanitation and updating them. Now, who's going to go get the kids back who were mentally harmed by this issue? They're grown up now, probably. Who's going to fix the hookworm issue, right? And do the people that live there know that that's what they were suffering from? I want to know. If you got family in Alabama, show them this, okay? They need to know. Now, quote Angelo, the lawyer at the Natural Resources Defense Council, called the settlement remarkable. Remarkable? Wait a minute. How is that remarkable? That's the right thing to do, at the very least, right? And so, but added that it will only solve the problem for one of the Black Belt counties. The EPA's probe this week will hopefully address the issue statewide. What's going on with Black Alabamians? Who is setting the terms for their condition? I would swim across the river and fight if I had that level of strength too. All praises to the Father for giving it to him, right? But we need to bring, this is our business, family. This is our business, and we need to be bringing our chairs and our best brains and defenses forward because, yes, laughable, laughable, right? And we got to learn how to navigate this wicked codification that they get entangled in. Because as you can see in the beginning, they had access and created a program and billions of dollars, but they created a legal codified loophole by which the black belt, predominantly black county, couldn't access the programs and funds. Now that was in 1987. They knew that they were going to create that legal codified loophole when they created the funding mechanism, right? And so we've been entangled in this battle over what is humane and what is right with these wicked folks that ain't going to never do right for how long, right? And so I'm sure that there are some minds out there among us that could fix this problem. Like I was reading through this and I was thinking like, wow, all of the advances, all of the intelligence, all of the things that are within our collective community. Why can't we create something that will solve this age-old problem for these people in Alabama? Now, I'm not a scientist. I understand code. I tell y'all that all the time. Code, code, code. Legislation, policy, code, right? And that's why I get these articles on my feed and I'm like, whoa, let me go look at the complaint, which is where we're going to go next. Okay. He said requiring regulators to accept individual household bids for on-site sanitation funding and to conduct outreach to communities that are not aware that the financial assistance exists. You see that? I said share this information. They're probably not aware by design, right? Earlier this summer, the EPA dropped a high-profile civil rights complaint in Louisiana's primary industrial corridor, where more than 100 industrial plants dump toxic pollution into the air of the predominantly black neighborhoods. That's our business right there. We don't need to look very far to handle our business. We don't need to look at what's happening in another country to say that's our business. This is our business right here where our chair's at, right? While that decision prompted advocates to consider whether the agency would fail to follow through with the other title complaints, Colangelo told Grist that he does not expect a similar situation in Alabama. It's on EPA to see it through, but we're confident that they will, he said. The Alabama Department of Environmental Management has 30 days after the EPA's announcement to respond to its probe in writing. The rest of it is codified. After that, the federal agency could choose to bring all parties to the negotiating table to work out an agreement or conduct an investigation of its own. All right. And so let's stop sharing that. And again, go over here to the complaint. Like I said, I wanted to bring out this complaint. I gotta cancel this print. Hold on. All right. So I want to bring out this complaint. Where's our chairs at? Right? And whatever that means to you, when I say where is the chairs at, I'm saying this is our problem. How are we looking at resolving our problem? Because we know the same people who created the problem to now turn and solve it, right? You're right, Anonymous, right? And I see that too. Pensilola, God bless. Yes, this is our business. Stop minding other people's business and figure out what our business is. And this is our business. So here you go, right here. Let me try to make United States Environmental Protection Agency. And you know what? I have the unredacted copy. There is a redacted copy. But I'm interested in understanding why some things were redacted. And until I find out why they were redacted, I'm going to keep on looking at this copy. Okay. And so I looked in the article and saw that the complaint was there. And as you can see, it's October 3rd, 2023. The Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, Office of External Civil Rights Compliance. Now, I done told y'all that all federal entities, agencies, have a office for civil rights, right? You just didn't know that because, of course, it's not advertised. So here you have the complaint with regards to Montgomery, Alabama. You heard that where the bus boycotts was? Interesting. All right. And so, as you can see, it says, Dear Director LaFleur, and I probably won't read this whole thing, but I did want you all to see it so that you can understand what is being said about the complaint, since we talked about it several times. And, I did not bring up the UN complaints, but that's definitely something that you should look into. What did the UN say in 2011? Now, I read them, but I'm not going to share them because of the time today. I wanted to share this one because it was the most recent. So in 2011, the UN created a report, and in 2017, they also created a report based on what the poverty official said. Look it up, fam. Look it up. The government has all of this in their filing cabinet. Okay. Now, here you go. The EPA, Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, Office of External Civil Rights Compliance, is accepting for the investigation the administrative complaint filed by the Southern Poverty Law Center on behalf of the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice and the Natural Resources Defense Council against the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. Now, I want to know, how long have these people been there and why they just now jumping in? Now, I'm not saying that they have a lot of power, but I see their names on other stuff that has been resolved, right? And so we're talking about in 1987, and we know before that it probably was going on, but it wasn't codified in a way that we could track it, until 1987, where the governance structure created a program to fix the water infrastructure, and from that point on, the state seemingly created a legal loophole to deny access to Black residents who needed to be able to access the program but couldn't because of that legal loophole, right? And so, weren't these people there? I mean, from the last time I checked, they've been there for a while. So I don't know, understand why they're jumping in, but we need to bring our chairs. Specifically, the complaint alleges, and I'm right here. Let's go a little bit up. The complaint alleges that ADEM discriminates against the Black residents of Alabama, particularly residents of the Black Belt region of Alabama, on the basis of race through its implementation of the ADEM of the Alabama Clean Water State Revolving Fund. You're welcome. You're welcome. Specifically, the complaint alleges that the sanitation would be so upset. And typically, I just read it in the confines of, me sitting here looking through codification, looking at complaints, looking at court cases. But I need to bring this stuff out because I want y'all to see, right? The complaint alleges that ADEM discriminates against the Black residents of Alabama, particularly residents of the Black Belt of region of Alabama, on the basis of race through its implementation of the Alabama Clean Water State Revolving Fund, SRF. Specifically, the complaint alleges that ADEM prevents Black residents from accessing federal SRF support to improve on-site sanitation access, in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, U.S. Code 42, Section 2000D. I want y'all to look up U.S. Code 42, Section D. Okay. If you didn't know about it before, I want you just to take this. I'm going to copy it and put it in the chat. And I want y'all to look that up. I want you to look it up and read through it. Okay. Because again, these things have been codified in a way that, for the most part, have been concealed from us, right? Unless you know to look for them. Okay. And the sequence, this means the sequence within that section. Okay. That means at sequence. Okay. And EPA's non-discrimination regulation at the Code of Federal Regulations, that's what that means, CFR, I mean, Part 7. So we're talking about Code of Federal Regulations 40, Part 7. Okay. And so if you go through this document, look it all up because these things are the U.S. codes and the Code of Force. So we're going to write that. Now, you see they will investigate the following issues. Whether ADEM's implementation of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, CWSRF, program, including the public engagement and outreach practices. Because how was people supposed to find out about it? How were they supposed to find out what they could do and what was happening? Right? That was intentional withholding of information at the detriment of people's lives, at the detriment of babies' black babies' minds. Okay, for generations. So its public engagement and outreach programs excludes from participation, denies benefits to, or subjects to discrimination residents in the Black Belt region of Alabama on the basis of race. And they're going to also investigate whether ADEM has and is implementing grievance procedures that provide prompt and fair resolution of discrimination complaints. I would say no. I mean, I get it. Y'all got to run an investigation. The UN gave a report in 2011. The UN turned around and sent someone in 2017 to Alabama, to the Black Belt, to this region. And that person, as a poverty official, said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in a first world. You have all of these other reports, and now we're going to see if the implementation of a grievance procedure resolved in fairness. We know it didn't, right? But you know what? They got to codify their stuff. So what we going to do, fam? Right? That's what I'm saying. If this is all that they had to rely on, is that these things will be investigated, and then there's some kind of resolution from that'll be in writing, and then what? The state is going to decide whether they want to do it or not, right? Going back to the same people who set the terms and conditions, and haven't been willing to fix it. How many UN officials you need to come up in there and tell you got a problem? How many public health crisis reports do you need for people to say, this is enough, this ain't right, this is inhumane? And in the meantime, they'll show you the Riverfoot battle and all the memes and t-shirts and everything else, but won't talk about black people over here in the Black Belt of Alabama that's sick, got hookworm, and children are having mental health conditions and stunning their growth and creating anemia and all the other parasitic and toxicity levels because of this water condition, and how they have been purposely and intentionally denied access to the funding and resources. Where's that at? But I'm talking about it, right? And so we have to share this information because nobody is going to open up the information in a way, show you the code, and say, basically, we're going to look at the complaint, try to resolve the complaint, but what does that resolution look like? right? Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I've been reading court cases and complaints for a long time, and I'll tell you what it's going to look like. A lot of times it'll look like a threat, like, okay, here's the guidance on what you should do, and we expect for you to enact this in a certain amount of time or you're going to lose your federal funding. Hmm. Some states will tell you out of their mouth they don't care. Why? Because from 1987 to now, they got over $1 billion worth of money to do what they wanted to do with their infrastructure and left the black community out. So, where is our plan to help address our families' needs over here? Right? So, the EPA's non discrimination regulation provides that OECRC shall attempt to resolve complaints informally whenever possible. Well, didn't the UN try to do that? I mean, am I seeing this wrong? Tell me, family, because y'all know how I get upset about what's happening, especially when they talk about babies. Our babies, right? Had mental conditions because of the hookworm, right? Like they weren't created to come in and be sick. This was by design because of the water. So they shall attempt to resolve complaints informally whenever possible. Accordingly, OECRC will contact complainants and aid them within 10 days of the date of this letter to provide information about the complaint process and offer and discuss the alternative dispute resolution. Okay. And informal resolution agreement processes as potential options for resolving the issues which OECRC has accepted for investigation. Ain't nobody coming to save us, man. I just want to say that. If you guys, if any of it, I know the people in the chat, I know my sisters in Anonymous, you guys are not waiting for someone to come and save you, right? But I gotta say, if someone's watching this and you're waiting for the Office for Civil Rights, the UN, or the governance structure to come and fix their problem and come and save black folks, it ain't happening. Hmm. It's not happening. And I advocate for utilizing the codified system to be able to file complaints because a lot of times we'll leave and a whole generation won't even know what happened because we didn't codify anything. We just let a whole bunch of research and a whole bunch of stuff be created about us and we didn't provide a counter narrative. So my counter narrative is to use the system of code to be able to provide information to upcoming generations in the past. You get me? Right? And so we have to be able to understand what is being said, which right here, what it seems like is that it's not what this is what is this going to do? What kind of enforcement is this? Okay. If ADAM and complainants with respect to ADR agrees to engage in either of these potential resolution processes, OECRC will suspend the timeline for issuing preliminary findings within 180 days of initiating the investigation. In the event that either of these potential resolution processes fail to result in an agreement, OECRC will notify ADAM as well as complainants that OECRC has resumed its process to issue preliminary findings within 180 days of the start of the investigation, excluding any days spent in either of these potential resolution processes. Now, I got a question for y'all. What is going to come up in 6 months that they don't even already know, right? That they don't even already know. From the UN report. I mean, this particular investigation components of funding and the Civil Rights Act and to see if, people were excluded from public engagement and outreach practices and if, they were, excluded from the grievance procedures and all of that fancy stuff. But right is right and wrong is wrong and woe unto those who call darkness, light, and light, darkness, evil, good, and good, evil. This is evil. Okay. What happened are brothers and sisters and has been continuing to happen is bad, evil, not good. Stop trying to make it seem like, and I'm talking about the governance structure, right? But in the meantime, I invite the family into the discussion to understand what's happening so that we could talk about minding our business, and this is our business, and what are we going to do? And what are we going to do? Right? And so here it is with, again, bring it up. Time had the question right. Time had the question right in 2022. Now, mind you, I'm going to keep bringing this timeline up. 11. So the program that we're talking about initiated over one day, right, was in 1987. I was 10 years old. Now, we're not even going to go back to the 50s and what was happening in Alabama, right? We're talking about this program in particular dealing with the water infrastructure issues and needs that was initiated in 1987. And I think they jiggling wires. I'm just going to keep on talking. Okay. Hopefully the screen will come up if you guys can hear me. I know that, it might be choppy because right now I see it choppy. And so I'm going to keep going. And so Time reported on this issue about the sanitation problems last year. So we have this timeline of 2011 when you see the UN report, 17, they sent in, okay, the poverty official from the UN, all the other subsequent health reports that were filed in between showing that there's hookworm in the water, sanitary and inhumane conditions, all of this stuff. And now, EPA's Office for Civil Rights plans to address what is that, right? We're going to address access to the program. Well, we already all right. So I'm gonna try to come back, um, but I see that there is an issue with them jiggling my wire, so I might have to um, join by phone. Give me 1 second. All right, can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, put a one. Okay. So I was on my headset and then all of a sudden the screen crashed. We already know how that goes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue to move on because this is information obvious
All right. I think I figured it out. I know that they jiggling. Yeah, they we just gonna pray. So again, what I'm saying is that I understand why they jiggling wires because this ain't is not mainstream information, right? And if it was, they're not gonna put together the timeline of issues in a way that we understand who is manipulating and controlling the conditions, who is manipulating and controlling those conditions, right? And so we're going to continue to go on, even in the face of attempted media oppression, whatever. We deal with that. We're tougher than that. And so let's look at the fact that the UN had their report in 2011, right? They sent in a poverty official in 2017. Okay. This poverty official said that this part of Alabama was worse than anything that he had ever experienced. Now, if you can imagine in a first world, right, where that UN poverty official had been to see things, and he's saying the Black Belt in Alabama, where the Black residents are dominantly living in this terrible condition about water, is the worst thing I have ever seen in the first world. That was in 2011. Okay. And now we have this 22. It was a civil rights issue then. You mean to tell me that we haven't benefited off of our civil rights yet? Sanitation problems, is what Tyne said, have plagued Black residents of an Alabama county for decades. The government might, and I think the writer of this one was signaling, right, might finally do something about it. Thank you. I appreciate you guys letting me know I'm back. I'm just going to try to continue to go on and talk about what's all right, y'all. So you know what? I'm just gonna join from my phone. Hold on, let me turn off this other thing. I find it remarkable. Hold on, let me turn off this other thing. I find it remarkable. Hold on, let me turn it down. Let me turn it down. And I don't think I can share links from my phone. Hold on. All right. I don't think I can share the links from my phone. Yeah, I see. Y'all see what this is, right?
Like, I want to let you know that I have a gig of internet. Okay. That's over 1,000 MPBSs. The only times I have an issue, because I could be sitting here browsing all day and meetings all day and not have not one problem. And the only time I have an issue is when I come and start to reveal information like this, especially looking into things that are codified. So what I'm going to try to do is add the articles. Can y'all hear me? Put a one. Well, keep on pushing. You guys can hear me. Please put a one. I see that it says, okay, cool. All right. So we just gonna keep on pushing. Um, I see you said ScrewTube is at it again. I need this information to get to the family and to those of you who know people in Alabama. And I need us to talk about where's our chairs at, what we gonna do. Because as you can see, that the UN created a report in 2011. Okay. The UN created this report in 2011 about the water conditions. And in 2017, they sent a UN poverty official, right, to go on over there and talk about what it was that they were going to do. 1987, the program was created. Okay, now I'm trying to bring it up so that you guys can see it. I think that I might be able to bring it up from the other tab that I'm on. If not, I'll drop these links in the chat. And the sanitary conditions still haven't been fixed, right? You mean to tell me that they could not fix, out of all of these reports, the sanitary conditions for those people in the Black Belt of Alabama? Look it up, since I obviously am not able to bring up the report, right? And so we have to mind our business, right? They can get all of these memes out, t-shirts, and all of these other products ready to go when it's about the riverfront. But y'all not talking about the decades of wickedness you've been doing with the water situation and how you set the terms of conditions. And now these people are supposed to hear back from the EPA Office of Civil Rights about a resolution, in 6 months, 180 days. And what is that going to do? What is that going to do? Right? Look, I was able to get it back. Thank the Most High. Because he already said that we got the victory, right? And so here you see right here, they said, and I want to know who wrote this. Hold on. Justin Rowland in Alabama. He in Alabama, saying they might finally do something about it. They might finally do something about it. But in this article, in other articles, in other reports that I read outside of the civil rights complaint, I actually saw the conditions were different, way worse than just hookworm. They were way worse than just a third of the population of children there having, stunted mental development. Okay. It wasn't just those two things and affecting only a third of the population. And so let's take this back a notch. Basically, the Black Belt in this county is predominantly Black, as a Black population lives there. They were denied access to the programs and resources to be able to address this unsanitary condition in the waters. Isn't it the state's responsibility, right, to deal with water situations, sanitation? Well, maybe they didn't feel like it was their responsibility. And so, as you can see, the situation is going on into a formal complaint, which means they won't. Exactly. Which means they won't. Right? And so
the situation has went to a formal complaint, EPA, Office of Civil Rights, certain section of that department, who is going to go in and investigate. The investigation was launched October 3rd. I can't bring the document back up, apparently, but we can look at it from right here. October 3rd of this year. And the EPA is saying that they will start to notify people about their rights and their abilities to resolve the matters prior to investigation, and all of those things. But that if they don't come up with a resolution, which I believe that they won't, then the EPA will launch their investigation and the 180 days won't be waived, right? And so if the people from Alabama were able to talk to these entities and institutions within Alabama and come up with a resolution, don't you think that they would have done it by now, from 1987 to now? Right? Over $1 billion went into the infrastructure, and the state could have addressed it, had many years of an opportunity and the financial resources, and didn't. So what is going to be different about now that the EPA done said something? Didn't 2 UN reports already come out about this? Right? What is going to be different? Nobody is coming to save us, but we need to bring our chairs on this one. So I definitely want to hear from y'all and know, after you've had time to look at the information that I put in the chat, and I'm going to put more of the articles in there, right? More of the articles and information in there, so you can definitely share this with your loved ones. I don't know if any of you have family or maybe tuning in from Alabama, right? But it's more to meets the eye than just a riverfront brawl, right? They want us to think about that while our family members is living in the Black Belt with messed up water. Wait a minute, that's inhumane. And we have no business minding other people's business. This is our business, family. This is our business. You asked me the question, are you your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper? Absolutely. This is inhumane. Everybody needs drinking water. Nobody should be having piles of backed up sewage and all of these other things. And we're talking about longer than a decade, to where there's reports on the parasites and levels of toxicity that have existed in this region, and the public health emergency that it created. We're not talking about something that just popped up and in a vacuum. So I bring it back to the Kerner Commission report, and how there was this Kerner Commission report, riot report is what they call it, that came out, and all of these recommendations about media, about, what should be happening, with regards to governance structures to solve the problem for social unrest. But they didn't enact or implement the recommendations, right? And then they wonder why we over there upset. Okay. And so I want to just go back to, I see that you said you have family all over Alabama. Show them this, okay? Because they're going to need to understand if there's access to anything, dollars, or if they need to file get their voices heard in that codified complaint. Remember I said we got to codify stuff. We can't just call up our cousins and them and have a conversation in a codified system. You have to be able to get your statements in there, right? I say that over and over. They're researching us. We have to have a counter narrative, and I will codify everything back to provide a counter narrative and to let the next upcoming generation understand the path and what has happened and how we have been entangled in this wicked codification, because I'll be danged if I leave here without putting it down for them. There's nobody's going to be able to gaslight my children and the children that I've taught this to. right? Because they're going to know how to look it up in the way that is codified. Okay. And so I want to share this, and I want you to tell your family, Pennsylvania, God bless, to look at the links, because it's kind of like a labyrinth, right? You got to go down this labyrinth to just get to the information where you need to know who to contact, right? And so I definitely want them to be able to look through these articles, go to the links, click them, and find out how they can make sure that they get their voices heard. Here it says, an Alabama Clean Water Fund discriminated against Black communities, complaint alleges. Well, we know that this is more than an allegation. We know that there are several reports. See, if you see stuff like this, you would think it's an isolated incident. That's how they keep gaslighting us, right? This isn't an isolated incident. We see that there are several reports that I brought up through this. And if they can't believe a UN report, then they created that governance structure with their forefathers, right? And all of this stuff that is codified to govern and implement and enforce and all of these other things, federal resources and all of that. And you mean to tell me you can't control what you got in your reports? That's enough information. They have enough information. So I asked the question, does the civil rights work for us? I was 10 years old when this was first documented in the federal system. I was 10, I'm 46 now. Is our civil rights working for us? That's what they say. Oh, civil rights, civil rights, civil rights. Where they at? Right? It takes over 40 years for a civil rights complaint to be taken seriously after 2011 UN report, after 2017, UN policy, privacy, UN, what was it? Poverty. Sorry, y'all, I get upset. A UN poverty official goes in there and says this is the worst condition ever in the first world I've ever seen. I don't know if this complaint is going to work, right? Because that's way more than enough information. The public health offices have documented the sicknesses, right? And you mean to tell me that there's a complaint? No, it needs to be a lot more than just a complaint, right? And so what are we going to do? The state is accused of making access to federal dollars so hard that the people who needed it most got nothing. Right? So what is this civil rights complaint going to do? We're talking about a way deeper problem than what a complaint can handle. And I showed y'all the complaint. And I showed you the people that are involved in filing the complaint and what is their interest, right? And why are they just jumping in? It's not a game of double dutch. You see me turning the ropes and now you jump in, right? And so here we see that the funds distributed through the program intended to address clean water issues for Black residents, but they didn't have access to it. You intended the funds to be distributed, over $1 billion in funds to address the clean water issues, but they didn't have access to it. And so here we see that historically, Black Alabamans have comprised the majority of the people who are forced to live. Thank you. Somebody said it. Forced to live, okay, with raw sewage and without proper plumbing. The rules that blocked access included a cumbersome point system. Sounds like the housing market. A refusal to consider financial need, a limited amount of loan forgiveness. And I'm taking my time with this, fam. I know I'm over an hour and I didn't want to go over an hour, but I want to break this down. And they kept jiggling the wires. A limited amount of loan forgiveness. Whoa, that sounds like the Black farmers and their USDA complaint, right? Wicked systems of codification that they created, the terms and conditions around know how to stifle and entangle us. And a lack of alternative financing options. In contrast, neighboring states like Florida and Georgia offer low interest loans options, and Virginia has a fund which offers grants to residents to replace their septic systems. One of the factors in the lack of viable sewage systems is the soil. Okay, so this is the key right here too. And if any of you know scientists, bioengineers amongst our community that may want to create something that can fix this problem, definitely send this to them. I'm not a scientist. I'm reading through the code, right? One of the factors in the lack of viable sewage systems is the soil, which is composed of clay and drains water very slowly, which makes it difficult to build and maintain sewage systems. Now, remember, these people were forced to live here. Okay. We're forced to live here. And this is the part of the soil that, of course, the terms and conditions were set in advance, right? And now they need a solution with the soil, and they better not. I've seen some attempts to blame this on climate change. That's wicked. Woe unto you for calling good evil and evil good, right? All right. And so here we have the factors and what needs to happen. There's plenty of reports so that we know what the problem is and what needs to happen. And so we need to put our minds together and our ingenuity together and help our family fix this problem. And so in poorer communities, septic systems are expensive to obtain, and many homeowners have straight pipes that flush waste directly from the home through a PVC pipe to an area nearby, sometimes just a few yards from the home. So you saw that picture with the water up to the yard, and that was taken by the EPA. In an area of the country where conditions are already difficult to achieve basic sanitary conditions, what did I say? They're going to blame it on climate change. Nah, this been going on since before y'all started reporting on climate change. Okay. And this is wickedness, what is happening to these people, and the inhumane treatment and the turning of a blind eye to the condition. Right. And so here's something about Catherine Coleman Flowers knows this issue deeply. It's interesting who talks about things. I'm not saying that Catherine is one of those people, but it's like the Southern Poverty Law Center. What is their interest in this, right? Catherine Coleman Flowers knows this issue deeply. After 20 years of advocating for her community, she founded the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice and wrote a book. Okay. But I want to know, how are we helping these people? Right? How are we helping our family members over here? And this is our business. Septic systems, as you can see, yeah, it's always that climate change thing. It's like, really? No, this is y'all wickedness, right? Septic systems in this part of the country must contend with many factors, including soil and high water table. But y'all knew that when you put the people over there and forced them to live there. Just like they knew that the levee was going to break in Katrina, right? You'll set the terms and conditions through your wickedness and left them there to die. Basically, let's call it thing a thing, okay? Septic systems are failing, as well as people just can't afford to fix them. Yeah, you knew that when you set the terms and conditions by which they can, access the economy. We're not going to play games, right? And like I said, if we are not looking at this stuff, they'll try to make it seem like an isolated incident happened, right? And we don't know all of the things that have happened since 1987 until now to make this a problem, which they could have resolved from then until now, but chose not to. Residents are also dealing with threats to their health due to sewage exposure, like hookworm. We have this study right here. Was President 1/3? We saw that already. Fixing the issue would address issues of disparities in health and sanitation, as well as eliminate a problem that has plagued Alabamans for decades. So we see that this is a problem. We see all of the entities and institutions and agencies that have full knowledge through studies and everything else of this problem. that had the opportunity to address the issue with the resources that were granted to solve problems like this, but denied Black Alabamans the opportunity to engage and be able to get the help that they needed. And so now we're at the basic point of having another complaint filed to the EPA to try to come in and solve the problem. I don't think it's going to help. I'm just going to say, I've seen a lot of these complaints. I've seen a lot of, different court cases that people stay bound up into. And, it comes down to you can't legislate hard changes. You can try to legislate justice, but we have to mind our business. And where are your chairs at? Let me know what you think. Share this information. I'm not going to belabor this point. Let me make sure that I put the Time Magazine article in. I think that I did. And yeah, Anonymous, you're right. You're right. It's like I literally don't want to hear nothing from people that are wicked as hell. And they definitely can't tell me how I should be acting and the things that I should be saying and the way that I should pursue justice, because they've already proven that there's nothing righteous or just about them. And they're not a moral compass for my behavior, for my tone of voice, for the way that I address these things. And neither are they for any of you watching this in our community, right? And we got to stop listening to people that have proven that they only know how to steal, kill, and destroy, and have aimed that against us and targeted us in multiple ways. And this is in a codified way, right? I'm not saying it's the only way we've been entangled, but it's the codified way. And civil rights got us caught up in more battles that haven't freed or helped us than a little bit. Okay. And then they'll keep saying, hurry up and come back and march. Don't you want to fight for your rights? Don't you want to go over here and vote for this person? Because they're going to solve all of your problems. Ain't nobody coming to save us, especially not from the governance structure that set the terms and conditions and designed the systemic oppression and designed the systemic web of wickedness. But I want to show you the way that they codify those things. And so that's why I come on and teach about this stuff, fam. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Again, we have to decide, put our best minds forward, innovators, thinkers, and those people that actually care. This is our business. We need to figure out how we are going to help our family over here solve their problems, because I'm not relying on the Southern Poverty Law Center. Look up their history, and I'm not relying on the EPA. But these people need help, and they need a solution, and they needed the solution decades ago. Okay. And so we have the ingenuity and intelligence and wisdom from the Most High, praise the Father, to be able to say, Father, how do we help our people over here? Because these wicked governance structure ain't going to help them. And come up with a plan and enact it, stick to it. And we have to agree to not mind other folks' business. This is our business. Go get your chair. And so I'll see you next time. Shalom.